Hello, I'm Edgar Parnell. I'm posting a series of videos that deal with some critical issues for co-ops and all other types of self-help enterprises, or SHEs for short. In this session, I'm focusing on the self-help system of organization, which is required in co-ops and all other types of SHEs. In an earlier video in this series, under the title Understanding Organizations, I outlined some of the reasons why our organizations do not always work as they should. It also explained the impact that these shortcomings have on co-ops and all other types of SHEs. If you have not previously viewed that video, I recommend that you see it soon. In this session, I will briefly explain the foundations of all organizations and how this impacts co-ops and all other types of SHEs. It's essential to understand what these foundations are and how they vary in different forms of organization. These foundations supply both the key to designing organizations and provide a framework for properly understanding them. These foundations are, first, the motivation for the organization's establishment. For example, to make money for its owners, or to forward social, religious, or political beliefs, or to take mutual action together with like-minded people to improve their lives. Next, we need to consider the purpose of the organization. Is the purpose to maximize the personal wealth of its owners, or does it aim to make money to support a specific cause, or is the aim to solve a specific problem? Then we need to know, what is the function of the organization? What does it do? Does it trade to maximize profits for its owners? Or is its function to sell goods or services to get money to support a specific cause? Or, in the alternative, is it to intervene in a market in support of its members? Then we need to know, what is the basis of association? Are the owners all family members? Or is it an association of finance, for example, a shareholder company? Or is it a joint venture company? Or an association of equal persons? Then we need to know, what is the basis of the relationships between the people involved? Is it based on the amount of finance that people provide? Or is there a pecking order based on status, political influence, religious matters? Or are all relationships equitable? Are all members of the organization equal persons? Then we need to understand how power is divided and exercised within the organization. Is there a board elected according to shareholding, or are directors appointed by an external organization? Or is it controlled by people appointed by government? Or are the people that ultimately control it elected democratically by and from the members of the organization? Next, we need to understand the economic system that is behind the organization. Is it run for profit, or is it not profit? Is it subsidized? What kind of economic system does it actually follow? Then we need to understand the basis of ownership. Who are the real owners? Is it a subsidiary of another organization? Is it controlled by a family? Or is it owned by the state? Or is it mutually or collectively owned? Then we need to understand what is the degree of sovereignty that the organization has. Who actually controls it? Even if it is nominally owned by a group of persons, is it in practice controlled by them, or do others control it? For example, do investors or its bankers ultimately control the organization? And finally, we need to consider what is the time perspective of the organization. Is it driven by short-term expediency, or has the organization got a much longer-term outlook? Is its existence time limited, for example? This diagram seeks to illustrate how these foundations of organization are interconnected and together provide the framework for the design of any form of organization. SHEs rely upon their foundation practices, which are central to the self-help form of enterprise, and these we consider next. First, we can look at the motivation for establishing a self-help enterprise. These are motivated to achieve a common purpose by means of mutual action. All self-help enterprises must be dedicated to achieving their purpose as mutually set by their members. This purpose ought to result in improving the lives of its members. The function of a self-help enterprise is to intervene in a market in the best interests of its members. SHEs are voluntary associations of equal persons. SHEs are based on the concept of equitable relationships. This means being committed to treating all members equally. It also means being obligated to be fair and honest in all its dealings. The practice of equivalence needs to prevail in all dealings with members of a self-help enterprise, meaning that they all have equal voice, chances, responsibilities, and access to the best deals. Also, always being treated and equally valued as human beings. SHEs need to be democratically controlled by their members, using a system of control based upon equivalence and everyone having equal rights. This means that each member only has the power of one vote. SHEs must be economically self-sustaining and run using the self-help enterprise economic system. This means that the enterprise must be viable, solvent, and have adequate liquidity. Finance must be the servant of the enterprise, not its master, and resource optimization is the driver, not profit maximization. A complete set of economic practices that together make up the self-help economic system are set out in my video, The Co-op / Self-Help Economic System. SHEs are owned by their members on a beneficial and mutual basis. This means that the current members have use of the assets of the enterprise and benefit from their use. Current members are in effect trustees, jointly holding the assets of the enterprise on behalf of both current and future members. Individual members own their personal investments in the enterprise, but have no claim on any increase in the value of the assets owned by the enterprise. SHEs need to be independent and in control of their destiny, which means that they need to be sovereign entities. Otherwise, they will not be able to act in the best interest of their members. This means being free from control by the state or political interference, and free from control by investors, patrons and/or cliques of any kind. SHEs should not be overly dependent upon their senior managers or patrons, regardless of their good intention or benevolence. SHEs should be committed to the long term. This means exercising foresight and stewardship in the management of their affairs and in the use of their resources, planning to meet not only the current needs of their members, but also providing for longer-term future needs. This calls for responsible planning and management. You may wish to compare the foundation practices as set out above with those used in other forms of enterprise. The 10 foundation practices listed above are an important part of the self-help model of enterprise, and the rules of all genuine SHEs should incorporate all of them. These foundations need to be supported and sustained by all the systems that make up the totality of the model. Universally, the major reason for the failure or mutation of self-help enterprises is that they do not always sustain their foundation practices. Only the membership, using predetermined procedures, should have the power to change any policies relating to the application of the foundation practices. This diagram seeks to illustrate how the 10 foundation practices of organizations are together applied in co-ops and in all other types of self-help enterprises. In the next video in this series, I outline the system of association required in SHEs and explain why many of the practices needed in this form of enterprise must differ from those used in commercial businesses. Please check out my website, Co-oppundit.org, for more information. All the explanations and details of the practices required to implement the Co-op / Self-Help Enterprise model are set out in my book, Enterprises That Change Lives. Please visit Co-oppundit.org to get this book, or find it on Amazon Books website. You can download a copy of this important book from as little as UK pounds $2.99 or US dollars $3.99, or get a paperback version mailed to you in many different countries. Thanks for watching. I look forward to you joining me for another session soon.